get ready?
Ready to go.
All right, so first of all, are there any public comments? No public comments, so let's just move right on into our agenda. So take it away.
Thank you. Good afternoon, committee members. The first on the agenda is the purchasing agenda for today, and you can see for yourself what is on that. The significant one is the bond projects, and Mr. Klomparens had mentioned this, I think, last meeting, that this is a bid for the city middle high renovations will be coming, and it did, and there it is. A few other things on the first page of that, but we'll certainly address any questions you may have in the purchasing agenda. Ken, if there's anything else you want to say about it?
I did want to say on the city bid, we got good numbers. Good. There were a few things that we had pulled back based on the estimates, and 2 of them we've already added back in. There were 7 classrooms on the first floor that weren't going to get air conditioning, and they will now, and the generator will get replaced. We still feel pretty comfortable, although we really need to get into work in the building and knock some holes in walls to see what we find before we feel comfortable spending any of the other contingency on some other items. But we got excellent pricing.
So this pricing is based on what you plan to do with the city, and then
the project as it stands right now, I'll talk in general numbers, is about $13.5 million worth of actual construction. Of that, it's close to 50-50 infrastructure versus aesthetic visible improvements. It's a little, I think it's 53-47%. The infrastructure would include a new heating system throughout we're only talking about the academic building, the old building. A heating system, adding air conditioning to all the classrooms. And the heating system is changing from steam to hot water. So those are significant. Those are things you really don't see. They're behind the wall. The things you will see is each classroom will get new ceiling, LED lighting, refinished floor, either new or refinished floor. If it's hardwood and we can refinish it, we will. If it's not, we'll recarpet it. We'll paint the walls, we'll put shades on the windows, and we'll add teaching technology to the wall, which is very sparse in city right now. So each room will get a smart board type technology. The hallways will be new ceilings, lights, flooring of some kind, painted walls. We will not air condition the hallways, and we will repaint all the lockers. We'll repaint, refinish, and floor the media center. The counseling offices and the administrative offices will get redone. We are changing the entry. We're taking over the teacher's lounge, which has a door off the front lobby. So after students come in, we'll open up all the doors to let students in. When they're in, we'll lock down, and any visitors will be forced through a new security office to be cleared into the building. There were 4 things that were asked for. One was classroom comfort, which we're handling by the heat, air conditioning, and the amenities in the classroom. Security, science labs, to meet the IB program, and the 4th one has slipped my mind right now. But there were 4 things, and we've covered them all. And it took a lot of work. I want to acknowledge the architect, engineer Tower Pinkster, and the construction manager Crispin. I pushed really hard on them to get the mechanical infrastructure cost down to a workable number in balance with the aesthetic part of the building.
Awesome, and they are right behind you, so thank you, you guys. Good work.
And there was a lot of work, so.
Great.
And we did get good bids.
And those 4 requests, those came from your community meetings with teachers, families? Excellent.
Actually, they came from the 2 students on the advisory committee.
Really? I love it. That's great.
So you can let the parents know that the decisions are made by these
fault.
2 students, so it's up to
The recommendation.
Yes. Very good.
So good. And school community is happy with decisions.
Yes.
Pause.
When we got to the balance of the project and we took it back to the advisory committee, they were fine with that. And basically, they were more concerned that there was enough visible evidence of what we did balanced with what you can't see behind the wall. We also met with the staff, and we met with all the students in the building and went through the project with them.
Great. So you said we're at about 13 million in expense, okay? And the budget is 17, is that what I see?
Well, the budget is all-inclusive, so that
Okay.
would include not only the construction project, but any other costs, the architect fees, the
Yeah.
CM fees, new furniture,
Sure.
which will come out of that number,
Gotcha.
things like that.
Perfect. Thank you.
Any more questions about either this item or anything else on the purchasing agenda? Can I get a motion to send this on to the full board?
So moved?
Support.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
No one's opposed. All right.
Kim made just a comment on the memo that's included in your information there regarding the 6 elementary schools we intend to take out for bid effort for air conditioning.
We've looked at the bond program and how our cash flow has been going, and balancing all that with the weather we had last fall, and we were asked to see what we could do. And it's really more of a cash flow that we're able to do this, but there were 6 buildings on the program list that most of their work, if not all, will be adding air conditioning to the building. So it's Brookside, East Leonard, Campus L, North Park, Frost Elementary, and Shawmut. We can advance those projects, so we are now in the process of trying to hire, or we've asked for proposals from architect engineers. We'll follow that with construction managers. The AE proposal should come to you at, I think that our next meeting's on the 18th, to get those moving. It is unlikely we'd have air conditioning in place for the fall. Some of the equipment is 12 to 16 week lead times, but we will do our best. Our goal is to get all the intrusive work done during the summer and be able to finish up as quickly as we can in the fall. So that's just more information.
Okay, yeah, thanks.
And on the sheet that showed the projects, they've been moved over to the first phase and marked, and they're shaded to identify them.
So for those schools that have had community meetings around visioning what to do with their bond dollars, have we communicated with them that this is the direction it's going?
These 6 buildings, the principals know that we are proposing this, and communications is preparing a notice from Teresa that will go out tomorrow.
Okay. All right.
We wanted to make sure the committee and the board knew about it first.
Absolutely.
Well, I'm sorry, I should have checked, but is that on the agenda tonight for the board to know?
Probably
These-
not.
I don't have my purchasing agenda is part of that tonight, Dr. Baker, so we could certainly
These-
part of that.
these- No, they don't.
Even though this is not the purchasing agenda during that discussion with the board tonight, we'll mention this if it's not. a
Okay,
separate
good, yeah,
board item,
just be
so,
good. And that,
Yeah.
maybe if a copy of that memo was then sent to the board
Well,
as
it's
well.
in the packet.
It's in the
That
packet.
memo
That
is
memo is in the packet tonight. Okay,
Yes.
all right,
Yeah.
that's good. Okay, good. So then you can make reference to it. Okay, good.
Okay, the other action item we have are 3 donations that need to be approved by this committee and onto the board. The first is $3,500 from GRPS Realtors Association for Burton Elementary's annual Secret Santa workshop. And then we have C.H. Robinson donating fleece jackets for all of Westwood Middle School students. This was they did this for the first time last year, and they are doing it again for Westwood this year. And then the final one, as you can see there, is the SAF providing Kindle devices to Harrison Park and Kent Hills in support of the literacy initiative, and that's valued at $8,000. So we would recommend that this committee accept these donations and move it to the board tonight.
Do we need to do this all at once, or all three, or separately?
Either way you want, as long as you, if you do it all at once, as long as you mention all three of them, you're fine. Yeah.
Okay, so can I get a motion for the Grand Rapids Association of Realtors, the, what's the C.H. Robinson, and the Student Advancement Foundation donation?
So moved.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed?
Okay.
All right, thanks.
Next item are the monthly reports, first being the financial dashboard, the financial statement you can see there. Tracking really according to what we had anticipated through October. I will point out, if you look about midway down, you'll see a line called total salaries. You can see year-to-date in 2018, 13.3 million approximately, and a year ago, 11.7 million. We expected that because, as we're aware of the new union contract, especially the teacher's contract, some significant increases in compensation there, and the other union is not as significant, but yet they all got increases. So we expected to see salaries at a higher level in 2018 as compared to 2017. Everything else is tracking well. The other thing I'll mention, if you look at the very top under the revenue section, payment from local governments, 12.2 million almost this year versus 6.3. Through October, probably 90% of the enhancement millage has been collected and remitted to us, and that's the line item that then enhancement millage falls into, and that's positive too. The balance sheet side, cash investments are strong. You can see our bonded debt there, and where we stand through October on the fund balance. Again, the projected fund balance in the middle, that's based on our budget for 2018 to finish the year at almost 8% at 11.5 million. We will really, right now, we're looking at operations year to date and are working on the first budget amendment, which we plan to bring to this group at the January Finance Committee meeting. At that time, if there's we'll obviously update the projected fund balance based on any changes, any significant changes in that amendment. And then, as usual, for those that like the detail, supporting the one pager that follows that, and so they can look at that at your leisure. Any questions anyone might have on the financial statement so far through October?
Just to kind of remind us of the timeline. So this meeting was actually, the meeting we're in right now is actually the November Finance Committee. We would presumably not be doing the December's, the fourth Monday, or would,
well,
is
right
the
now,
fourth Monday the...
Right now it's scheduled for the 2 weeks from today.
That's right, okay.
Baker, yeah.
All right, and then in January, we would have the fourth Monday in January is when we would get the amendment to.
That is our plan, right? I'll bring the amendment to this committee at that point.
Okay,
the board act on it the following, next board meeting, early February. Yeah.
Okay.
So, okay. Okay, warm, safe, and dry. Ken?
The 3 projects from this summer are wrapping up. We're just doing the final financial summary, and then we'll verify exactly how much safe dry funding we have left. Right now, we don't have any immediate plans to use it. So until we make a program and recommendation, we're going to just hold it for emergencies. If we should have a boiler go out or a roof blow off, we have something to work from. And as far as we can find, there's no timeline to spend it, but we don't just want to sit on it either. So that's for this winter to come up with a program of how to to zero that out over time. Otherwise, the jobs are finished and just wrapping up. Bond, both Buchanan and Museum are moving forward. At this point, they're still on schedule to meet our August opening. We don't see anything that's going to really affect that at this point. And then the city project, assuming approval tonight, Chrisman Company and their subs will be in later this week. We have a number of temporary walls to build. We're going to close down the north half of the school at holiday break. We've found temporary classrooms for everybody. We met with the staff and showed them where they're going to move. So we're working with Ryan Huppert, Principal Huppert, and his staff to go through the relocation. We're actually hiring a moving company to move all those classrooms over the holiday break. And we're working with them so that the schedule can be put out. There's a lot of logistics to make this happen, but it'll work. I appreciate Ryan. He's very positive and enthusiastic with his staff that, yeah, this is a kind of a messy thing to go through, but keep your eye on what it's going to be like at the end. Ryan's been very positive that way.
Great.
Okay.
The policy discussion next. So I'll introduce the conversation as I've had it. Were you ready at this point for this?
Yeah.
As we've been building buildings, and especially in the Roosevelt Park neighborhood, questions have come up about how we're doing hiring and contracting in a way that would allow us to benefit the communities where we're building in either at all or currently or really in a way that people don't necessarily know what is occurring. So I think that perhaps this could become a broader discussion through the policy committee later, but I thought it would be great for us to start with this committee actually knowing what our policies were around that. We, about 5 years ago, Ken, I think, went through a board policy to try to follow what in my impression then the city of Grand Rapids was doing to encourage local hiring. But since then, most of the board is different, and things have changed a lot. So anyway, at first, I just wanted to talk about what our policy currently is and how it's implemented. So I don't know if that's too broad for you, Ken, or?
The policy that we have, the local preference, there's two parts. One is for goods and services purchasing, and one is for contracting. So the contracting part did start paralleling the city's micro-local business policy. We varied from it, and a couple ways we're different is our limits are the city of Grand Rapids limits, which match our borders. And the other thing is we do not make anyone pre-register. We will honor that 5% bid discount to anybody who bids. We check every address of a bidder to see if they qualify. We don't want to put that burden. We don't want them to, they didn't know about it and missed out. So we've just taken that on. It doesn't matter whether we check 2 or 3 addresses or every one of them. And so we'll tell them if they qualify and make that, put that into play. There is 5% bid discount is available up to a max of $25,000 per bid. And I believe on the memo it shows out of the 10 million for city that we requested today, 800,000 turned out to be local contractors. Just from a practical standpoint, it often seems like either no one is eligible or multiple contractors are eligible. It's just the way it works out. So
what does it mean that no one is eligible, or?
They're all outside the city, or you have 3 of them and they all get 5%, so it washes out. It's just back to low bidder. but one of them would be the low bidder. For the bond program, we went a little further when we hired our architects and construction managers. One of the things we put in their items to in their performance was that they were to maximize opportunities for local businesses and employment opportunities for Grand Rapids residents. And that really applies more to the construction managers and the architects, and each one has done it a little different on how they notify prospective bidders. There's been some different things done with providing the construction bonding for bidders, which can be a difficult thing, especially for a small contractor. It's not just the bond capability to bid that job. What they have out to bid ties up their maximum bond capability set by their insurance companies. So this then helps free that up to them to keep getting business. Facilities, in partnership with purchasing, we put on a vendor fair probably a year ago now, where we invited everybody we could think of over to University to go through, and we had our architects, our construction managers there. We wanted to make introductions. We walked through the bond program of projects that were coming, just trying to make people aware. I know some of our construction managers have had their own mini vendor fairs before bid to try and open that up. So we've tried to go further along with our bid, our legal advertising for bids. We've notified groups like West Michigan Minority Contractors Association, groups like that, who then can pass it on to their membership and make them aware that there's a potential bid out there.
And so I just have a question to follow up on that, because when you led with the question, we were talking about Roosevelt Park area, and just so I'm always happy to support local, but local doesn't exactly get to the heart of what I think might have been meant when we talked about a specific area, and like the way that we can support that economy and those people in that neighborhood. And so talking about Roosevelt Park, but expanding to any neighborhood if we were doing work on the southeast side as well, like, do we have any type of policy or thought around going deeper? So like I heard you right at the end say working with minority contractors, but outside of reaching out and asking someone to pass like an email along, do we have any other strategies or plans, things that we do to make sure that it's not just diverse in a local sense, but in in multiple ways, I guess I'm saying.
I'm going to ask Cheryl to help back me up, because some of this has to be balanced with the legalities of bidding. We still have to bid.
Right.
So correct me if I say something wrong. Our goal is to get as many people, many companies to bid, and as many opportunities. And the way to do that is to get information out so they know what is available and when and do they qualify.
Right, I absolutely agree. So I'm just wondering what different channels we're using to get that information.
So historically, we've talked directly to the Grand Rapids Chamber, the Hispanic Chamber, things like that to get bids, and if we're looking for certain products, we put notification out. There's a fine line about going out and hand picking and making it look like we're hand picking. So we have to be careful that we're not just looking specifically for minority vendors or local vendors. We have to put the opportunity out to everybody.
Right.
And that's why we give the bid discount. So that gives them the upper hand just to be able to get in the door to qualify. But we have to be careful with the bigger vendors too, that we're not just being, what they call is we can't be selective.
Right.
And how we choose our vendors. So we have to be careful how we do that.
Right. And I'm just asking because I'm asked these questions all the time, and I want to make sure that I have the correct response when I'm being asked these questions by the community.
And, in especially the bond projects, there are different opportunities. Some of the bid categories, like mechanical, they're large. They deal with large, expensive pieces of equipment, and it really winds up that it takes some fairly big companies to be able to handle them and bid on them and perform them. But the other part that we were trying to do was to make sure that there's employment opportunities for our Grand Rapids residents. And that again feeds with the local companies. They're more in tune to hiring local residents.
So then is that an area where we can look at specific neighborhoods and say, like, we're coming in and we're doing this work in this neighborhood, let's offer opportunities to people who are living right here, their kids will be going to the schools right here, you know?
Well, we can encourage our contractors and subcontractors to hire locally, but that's still
Just to share
up
the
to them.
information is what I'm, and so for none of this am I saying like specifically being intentional about writing a check or giving a job, but I'm talking about like sharing that information.
And we do that currently, annually, we do that at the Reverse Trade Fair with the West Michigan Purchasing Professionals Association, right here in Grand Rapids, we do it with them. So we sit there, we put out the jobs that we're going to have, the different projects that are upcoming, and we usually have a lot of local and minority vendors that come to that. So they get a lot of opportunity information that way.
At the vendor fair we put on, we did try and invite prospective folks who were looking for employment to match them up with potential contractors. Granted, we didn't get a lot of turnout that way, but we did try to make notification and try to get that door opened up.
So can you, I guess, just a lot of brainstorming questions, but anyway, so the vendor fair, what does it end up looking like? So the vendor fair, who are you inviting? I mean, what kinds of people are going to be there?
We invited those professionals that were working on our project, so our architect engineers, our construction managers. And then we put notices out, advertised to smaller companies that would sub-bid to the larger companies, and that there was we wanted to make sure they could make the connections. We added around the room, this company is hired for this project, and this is what they're doing. And after we gave information, there was opportunity to work around the room and talk to each major player that we had hired, the professionals, the construction managers, to try and make connections of where they could fit together. We did, and to be honest, I'm not recalling the exact method we used, but we did put out notification if people were looking for employment, we would make that connection at the same meeting. And they could hear about what we had in the works to see if it fit with their job skills.
So when the vendor fair occurred and the people that showed up, would there have been individuals and businesses from the neighbor? Were there actually businesses and individuals
We
from the
put out the
neighbors?
advertisement through our communication office, and it went out to the different chambers, it went out to GROW, it went out to all the minority representatives across Grand Rapids.
But when the event occurred, who showed?
It was very small.
Well, we had a disappointing turnout, but the ones that did turn out were able to actually make connections and get good information.
When we say that we encourage our prime sponsors to employ local first and their subcontractors and employees, what does that look like? What do we say we encourage them, but what is the substantive way of them demonstrating that they have in fact engaged in a strategy to reach out to minority vendors or to female employees, as an example? Do we ask anything of them in writing, a strategy, a plan, or report, a summary of their activities and efforts? Is there anything that's quantifiable that demonstrates that they have made a good faith effort to reflect I guess the goals that we have to make sure that we are participating in a more inclusive manner in our bidding process and in the culmination of awarding contracts to people who want to make efforts to create a more egalitarian society?
As far as the follow-up on hiring local subcontractors, yes, the construction managers provide us with a summary of what they did during the bidding process to get that communication out, to encourage and get to that point, and then there's a summary in the bid packet. I believe in the back of the bid packet, there's a summary of how many local DBE and WBE contractors bid by number, and then there was a written summary of what they put in place to do that. As far as hiring, that's a little harder for us to require follow-up.
Would there be anything out of the norm in terms of, or anything restrictive legally to request of prime sponsors who we award significant dollars to submit, some report that was a little more comprehensive as to what their strategies were, what their initiatives were, what outcomes they had in trying to include more local residents of even, say, a neighborhood like a Roosevelt neighborhood area, or like a southeast area, or where schools are located? I mean, would there be anything that would restrict us from doing that?
I don't know. We'll ask Sharon Pitts, and if not, we will do that.
Yeah, I guess there's the process, so I'm not quite sure how the bidding process, the 5% discount off the top, but if, it sounds like that only works if it's within that 5%. So there could be other decisions made other than that 5%, correct?
Correct.
Right, so we may end up, even though we have that policy, it doesn't necessarily even mean we end up with much of an outcome.
But there are other things that we look at besides just the overall cost of the bid.
Right. So I guess in terms of it, are there things that the board can do in terms of its policy, or the district can do in terms of its practices to increase? So there's what we do, and there's what we must do, and then what can we do to ensure that we have more people, if we exhaust the opportunities, we exhaust the possibilities of people to be able to participate in this, especially since, they're the ones paying for it as well. So I think that's the sense. I mean, when I've come across it, it's like, we supported your bond proposal, we're really happy you're building the school, we're great at the opportunities it's going to provide our kids. What is the process that you're using to allow our businesses to participate in this? And that's where I have to say I don't really know, because I know that there's this local first policy, but I don't know how much that ends up impacting their opportunity to participate in the building.
And it's within that realm of, what can we do, or what can we expect of people who have a sincere commitment to increasing diversity in this whole process. As that whole area of communication, we're in a much faster paced society today. We miss things. Even if you're in the trades, you're busy, actually working in those trades, performing jobs, you might miss some things. And then, there's this whole pool of new entrepreneurs that are at certain levels that may want to participate. Who knows? I don't have the magic answer as to how to reach these people, but I guess I would like to see, from people that we're awarding $10 million to, or $5 million, or $3 million, or $1 million, what did you do to accomplish these goals that we have for our particular community, Grand Rapids first?
So the city of Grand Rapids recently made a change to their bidding process as well. I'm looking back, I wasn't part of the team that made these changes, but I think it came out of the Monday group, Mr. Complain, so maybe you can comment to it. So the city of Grand Rapids actually now has a bid discount for hiring certain individuals. So if your company can show that actually they've hired out of the Academy for Design and Construction, one of ABC's training programs, and others, then you get another additional bid discount to incentivize bidding. So it's happening in our city. I don't know whether or not it would be appropriate in our school district, but it could be something we look at to offer an additional incentive if you can document that you've hired somebody from a neighborhood.
Are there other tools, just based on your knowledge of the industry, that are used to kind of help hire local or hire even micro-local, as Christian said?
Right. I'll do some research, not off the top of my head, but I can reach out to other ABC chapters and see if they have heard of anything that's really successful. Yeah, I'm sorry that I don't know that off the top of my head. Mm-hmm.
Well, in terms of just off the top of your head, how effective are we, I don't mean just GRPS, but in terms of the building of the buildings, how effective are we at creating, a local/diverse group of people who are building the buildings? Or can we answer the question?
I don't know if I can answer that question. What I can say is we made significant effort to get the word out, make the opportunity there. How successful we've been on translating that opportunity into success of winning bids, I can't tell you. But we've worked fairly hard to get that word out, much more than on previous projects. And I think the other piece that we can start to talk about internally, maybe come back as a policy modification, if it's appropriate, is how do we deal with employment? Is there a way to put into policy bid discount if you have a certain employment ratio, or how do we set that up? We'll need to take a hard look at that.
And we have the ability to track that now. When we put out the application that I brought to you last year, we've got back almost 600 responses on our applications, and they are marking that stuff down, how many employees that they employ right within the city of Grand Rapids. So once we're able to go through all that data and break it all down, we can see. And we are starting to use more vendors for product itself that are local and minority owned.
Right.
We're able to track that.
Yeah, which is a whole nother conversation we haven't got to. But yeah, I think it's not to be critical of the efforts that have been made. I mean, I think that it seems very strong. It's just that, are there ways that we can, at least at the board level, create policies that get to the outcomes that we're kind of interested in, which is really being good partners with the people that live in our community that, are building our buildings, are paying to build the buildings at least. So it's, is there a way we can get to outcomes? I mean, that's why we created this 5 years ago. And it was created as a response to legislative change or, constitutional change. So how do we get to outcomes that the community feels respects their investment in the schools? And the process is important, but the outcomes is really why we're implementing this. So, I don't know, I think that we should continue the conversation. I think it probably needs to be discussed at a full board instead of just the policy. I mean, you guys could create a policy, but it seems like we should discuss what we want the policy to look like.
I agree.
And also have some advice about what it can look like. I mean, I know that there are rules we're supposed to follow, so we can request that it go to a work session or a retreat, so. So thanks for going to this.
And just from a timeline, it's probably at least 6 months before we bring the next major project bid. So if we have some time to enact a policy that then could be implemented at the next bid period.
Oh, that's perfect. Okay, so that's good timing then. Okay, so. All right, so we'll have to make a point to get that to the full board to doing a work session soon.
Thank you guys for answering some questions on the fly.
Yeah.
All right, well, any other comments, questions? We'll see you soon, I mean really soon, today, and then we'll see you also soon for our next Finance Committee meeting. So, all right, thanks. Adjourn.
Thank you.